Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm going to speak about something that is in the Bundesliga actually, and I think that this is a question for a lot of people. I think a lot of people do ask themselves this question quite a lot. And that my question is, what if Borussia Dortmund hadn't sold their best players, not just to Bayern Munich but generally? There's a lot of players over the years Dortmund have sold in arguably the prime of their career, such as Mats Hummels. Mario Götze was a young rising star at the time. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang they sold to Arsenal. Henrik Mkhitaryan, they sold Shinsuke Kagawa to Manchester United. And Ilkay Gundogan to Manchester City. They've sold players, Dortmund, at probably the wrong time of their careers when they have gone on to other clubs. And for some players, it hasn't worked out for them. Of course, Henrik Mkhitaryan hasn't done very well in England. Of course, Shinsuke Kagawa didn't do well at Manchester United and ended up back at the club. Mario Götze at Bayern Munich. But Dortmund selling these players at this point, has this really affected them? And I think that if Dortmund hadn't sold these players, it makes you wonder, would they have been, competing, not just competing with Bayern Munich more, but maybe even winning titles over them? Of course, Dortmund did last won the Bundesliga trophy, and I believe it was 2012, and since then they just haven't quite managed to get back up there with Bayern. They've had a couple of maybe title races with them, but it hasn't quite been there since the Champions League final in 2013. You do feel like Bayern has kind of pulled away more and more every year, and for me, the biggest purchase out of the lot was definitely Robert Lewandowski. He's the one who I think really has put Bayern on a different level because of his goals. But yeah, overall, it's a shame for Dortmund because obviously Dortmund are a worldwide respected club. Everyone respects what Dortmund have done right from the Jurgen Klopp days till now. I mean, they've played some, great football. They've had some great players. It's just unfortunate they have sold them players. But the one thing we've got to say about Dortmund is no matter how many players they have sold, to their credit, they have managed to, always bring another player through and make them into stars. I think Dortmund have managed to create the stars, but have always unfortunately sold them on. But if Dortmund hadn't sold these players and didn't become a selling club, it does make you wonder, would they be more up there with Bayern Munich, and would they have maybe won titles instead of Bayern Munich? It is a shame, to be honest with you, that it has come to that, but guess that is part of football sometimes. I mean, we've seen it in the Premier League, for example, with Arsenal, who were a selling club at one point as well, and it does affect teams in the long run. But to be fair to Dortmund, they are getting back up there with Bayern now and starting to compete a little bit more than maybe in previous years. So yeah, I mean, maybe Dortmund, with the signing of Haaland, if he does stay there in the long run, I think, and he does reach that potential that he's got, I think Dortmund could be competing with Bayern Munich again, and even in the Champions League again, maybe, in the years to come. The big question about Jadon Sancho, I think he is one that is looking likely to leave, but I mean, where Sancho goes is a different question, though. I mean, I don't see him going Bayern Munich, of course, that often has been Dortmund's, where they've sold to, but I mean, there's been talks of Manchester United. I think that's the club looking most likely, but even so, would going Man United be the right move for Sancho at this point of his career? We've seen a lot of players move to Man United in previous years and it not work out for them, and Sancho's really at the point of his career when he needs to choose carefully. He's a young lad. He's got plenty of years ahead of him as well. And you've also got Marco Reus has been, of course, probably the loyalist Dortmund servant throughout all this. Of course, and I think, it's shame how injury prone he actually is, but he is a very good player, and he's probably again Dortmund's loyalist servant throughout them, selling all the best players. Of course, it's a difficult position really if you are Dortmund, because you know keeping hold of players is easier said than done. Bundesliga is not the wealthiest league. And yeah, I mean, hopefully Dortmund can keep up. I think the big one for me is Haaland, as I've said. I mean, if they can keep hold of Haaland for a few years, that will be a big thing. To even get Haaland in the first place was a big deal for Dortmund, really. And of course, they have got Mats Hummels back in defence as well. Of course, he did spend, you can also say, his best years at Bayern Munich, unfortunately, but he is back at Dortmund now and has enjoyed a pretty good season as well. How do Dortmund go forward? I think they've got to build a team around Haaland. I'd say if Sancho was to stay at the club, which I don't see happening, him as well. But I think you build a team around Haaland and you get the young players in. And Dortmund have always been very good at developing young players, and I think this is another chance for them in the coming years to do that as well. And they can build a team around players. I think that's the way forward. And for me, if Haaland stays at them like in the coming years, that's massive news for them as well. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Dortmund compete again. I'd like to see Dortmund win the Bundesliga over Bayern Munich. That'd be great because I think Dortmund obviously have gone through a few years of transition now, and they are getting back up there. And of course, to see Dortmund competing in the Champions League would also be welcome as well. I mean, Dortmund have won the Champions League before, so and they came close in 2013. So see them competing again would also be very good. But yeah, that's my video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tell me your opinions on Borussia Dortmund. If they hadn't sold their best players, how would they have won many more Bundesliga titles, or maybe even been to more Champions League finals or won the Champions League? It does beg the question. They've sold some very good players, Borussia Dortmund, and if they'd kept these players at the point of their careers they were at, it is interesting to see how much better they'd be in position now, really. But even in previous years, how many more trophies they'd have won, as I just said. But yeah, like I said, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with more football content. Thank you.